Who do you trust? Who do you trust? We're going to break this down between the Steelers and the Eagles. Who do you trust, Steve, more? Whether it's who do you trust from the head coach, who do you trust from the quarterback, and I'm going to say who do you trust from the rest of the roster, and I'm going to lump it in together. Right out of the gate, first thought in your head is, who do you trust more? We got the 10-3 Steelers, the 11-2 Eagles. Who do you trust more?
When we're saying the 10-3 Steelers, that's so shocking and surprising, right?
Yeah.
But then you also look at who do you trust more as head coach. I'm going with Mike T because here's why. He's taking a lesser roster and making things out of it. No one saw Russell Wilson playing the way he's playing.
No.
TJ Watt, they're just a different team with him on the field. You know, how they're doing. Joey Porter Jr.'s a really good corner. That's going to be he's very handsy, very physical. So A.J. and him going at it, that's going to be fireworks. I mean, two heavyweight bout guys. But the thing that why I go with Pittsburgh is we know the deficiencies of Pittsburgh and their offense, and they're okay with it. The deficiencies with the Philadelphia Eagles, can they overcome it? And how does it manifest itself through the play calling and through the effort by the players and the mannerisms and the, how do they look on the sideline? I think that's the difference where we've seen a Nick Sirianni's team, they emotionally sometimes can't weather the storm as good as you would like, especially with Nick Sirianni being a guy who is known for a culture guy. And sometimes you go, man, for this a culture guy, do you remember a couple of weeks, about 2 months ago before the season, Nick Sirianni was being believed be on a hot seat because they had so much talent and they weren't living up to those expectations of the contracts and some of the players that they have. When you look at Pittsburgh, you can't say that. You can't say that Pittsburgh isn't playing up to their talent. You can also say that Pittsburgh, if they get some more players this offseason, they could be a team that you can go, man, they could be like the Kansas City Chiefs where they're winning these one-score games, but they aren't winning one-score games. They're winning really good games. They're putting up numbers and points in ways you didn't think.
It's fascinating that that's your perspective. And I understand it because it makes a lot of sense. And you're talking about Pittsburgh in this manner, and the other team is on a 9-game win streak.
Correct.
And you know what I mean? And it's fascinating the way you look at it.
Who almost lost to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and listen, and I understand the Mike T advantage there. The fact that man has never won Coach of the Year is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. He's never had a losing season. This might be the year he does it because the old adage is if you got two quarterbacks, you got none. Mike T has two quarterbacks and he's completely fine with it. And he's just rolling. Had one start early, had a lot of faith, and now Russell Wilson has bought into everything Arthur Smith, to my understanding, has asked him to do. You're seeing the RPO game, Steve, that they're starting to run. That's something that Russ didn't really want to do a whole lot. He's buying into everything that they're asking him to do in terms of finding ways, like you mentioned, to put points on the board, finding ways, maybe even within some of their limitations, to go out there and find a way to have an effective offense. The funny part that jumps out at me is this. Nick Sirianni is 45-19 in his career in Philadelphia. He's a bullshit holding call away from beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And the last time the Steelers won a playoff game was 2016. But I still do trust Mike Tomlin. You get what I'm saying? It's funny, though, that there's this... And I understand the perception. I'm from Philly. I understand the perception of Nick Sirianni. I understand the perception of what's going wrong. That's kind of always the way things are in Philadelphia. They're on a 9-game win streak. The sky is falling. The pass game is terrible. What are we going to do? There's some other teams that are rolling, and there doesn't seem to be the concerns. Kansas City Chiefs, there's not like a locker room going, what's wrong with our offense? When it does have its issues, but they're winning games.
But the reason why is the players aren't saying anything. That's the difference. What Mike T has done with Russell Wilson is the closest thing we've seen in the media, if you're living under a rock, is like how they have opened up and restructured and rebuilt after the fire of the Church of Notre Dame. It's just remarkable. No one has seen it, and you go back in there and you go, wow, this is what it looks like over 5 years of reconstruction, and whew. And that's what it's looking like. But with Philadelphia, there's been almost, you signed Jalen Hurts to this big contract. He's playing through injuries last year, doesn't look sharp. Now you have the passing game isn't there. Players are getting upset, should be. Are you either playing down to your opponent or your opponent just was better than what you anticipated? But ultimately, you're on a 9-game winning streak, but you're squeaking out some of these games where some of the other games you're going, that's the team that they can and should be. You didn't see that this Sunday against the Carolina Panthers.
Well, I just think, Steve, they're beating teams in the manner in which people are curious if it can continue.
Yeah.
Because they're relying so heavily on the run.
Yeah.
And the two things that go hand in hand, which is why I'm curious if a lot of people trust the Eagles, is because they're historically slow starters this season. I mean, like, I wrote down the stat. It's like beyond insane.
It's like the Cincinnati Bengals, except they aren't winning.
Yeah, they've been shut out in the first quarter in 10 of their 13 games. So if the postseason rolls around and you start off that slow, but your offense is relying on the run game, can you stick with the run? Most of their explosive plays have come through the run. Can you play that style of football, which is what? And the reason this comparison is fun is because they both play kind of similar styles. Really good defense.
Yep.
Can run the football consistently. And can the Eagles do that if they keep starting slow? I think that's why we're having the conversation, because it almost has the appearance, and I don't have intel on this is more of an opinion. This is the 31st ranked passing offense. 31st. The only team worse is the Patriots, I believe, in terms of yards per game. Are they too reliant on what's working in the run game? Jalen's cut down the interceptions, which was a big issue last year and a big issue at the start of the year. Is it, well, I'm not going to take a shot because we don't want to turn the ball over. The run game's operating really, really well. Mm-hmm. But guys are open, Steve. And you mentioned Mike Tomlin and what he's been able to do as a head coach. I think Nick Sirianni's going to get tested these next couple of weeks. The comments from Brandon Graham about Jalen Hurts,
the backtrack,
A.J. Brown, and then the backtrack. The cat's out of the bag now. How does Nick Sirianni handle this situation? Steve, from a receiver perspective, A.J. Brown is one of the better receivers in the NFL.
Absolutely.
He really is. And he has been open.
Wide open.
He has not gotten balls, and he has not hid his frustration during games, after games, but they're winning games. So how do you take that as a receiver going, I'm not getting the ball, we're not throwing the ball?
That gets us in trouble. That gets us in trouble.
We're winning games.
You don't catch passes, but you're winning a football game, that automatically puts you in the diva category. That automatically puts you in that category of selfishness. Yeah. That's not necessarily accurate. A wide receiver is predicated on what he can bring to the table based off what is structured for him.
Yeah.
What opportunities he's getting. But then if he's running the routes, he also knows every week they're looking at what type of routes. And so if they can duplicate that blitz, duplicate that schematic for the defense, then that means he's going to get overlooked again. And so you start to sit out there and you start to get triggered. You start to think and go through, well, next week, the same teams are going to do this. And if we don't show our tendencies to overcome our own problems, then that's where it's going to get difficult. And that's what happens to a wide receiver. We start foreshadowing. We start looking too far ahead. That's where you get yourself in trouble. That's where you have to be not necessarily mature, but you have to kind of calm the voices in your head to say, hey, man, I got to be patient. And it's always easier said than done, sitting here
for sure
in an air-conditioned room with a camera and a laptop and some notes. It's comfortable here. It ain't comfortable on a football field, right?
Yeah.
It's not. You can get hit, it's just a lot going on. And so this is where things start to get fuzzy, where the fuzzy math goes and people they hear a comment and they run with it. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to know the job of the media and as a player that you can't give them a crumb. What Coach Fox used to always say is the media are like mushrooms.
Oh, no.
Yes. You keep them in the dark and you keep feeding them and it will grow.
Philly media is different than a lot of places. They could win these games, and every question in the locker room after that game is how bad is our passing offense to every single guy. That's the way that.
But it's bad though.
Wired.
It's not like they're drumming up fictitious things. It actually is bad.
We always look at this diva receivers, right? Upset, I'm not getting the ball. A.J. is 5th in the NFL in yards per game. He's averaging 83 yards per game. They're dead last in attempts.
83?
83. That's 5th in the NFL in yards per game.
Bro, 5th in the NFL is great for you reading off the numbers. 83 ain't it. You need to be in a 96 or 100.
Listen, you look at what he's done in his time in Philadelphia. It's much more than this. My point is, he's producing with very little. That's my point. They're dead last in attempts. So, but the point
you talking about AJ's frustrated though. You know who else? You know who should be frustrated?
What's going on? James Palmer here, and let's get real for a second. You see the underdog graphics flying in and out of the show 89 with Steve Smith and myself. Well, you're probably wondering, what are these? Well, what they are is it gives you an opportunity to participate, to start playing. You can use the promo code UD89. You can scan the QR code and you can start playing instantly. Dive right in and you can win $1,000 bonus cash like that. You just got to pick higher or lower. So remember, scan that QR code. Use that promo code UD89. What we do here at 89, we give you analysis, we give you breakdowns, we give you the news. We love that you're here. We love that you're watching us and hanging out with us. But now, when you do this, you get an opportunity to find out if we actually know what we're talking about.
You know who should be frustrated? Devonta Smith. Smith's the Slim Reaper. He ain't getting his opportunities.
He was frustrated after the game too. What I'm asking at is, do we always look at this in the media, us mushrooms, from one lens, right? The lens is, he's not getting the ball, he's upset. I want my touches. Why isn't it ever looked at, I'm open, if I get the ball, it's better for our team. I'm winning these one-on-one matchups. We should go to me in these one-on-one matchups for the betterment of our team. Is there frustration also because we have high expectations for ourselves?
Yes.
We know we have this talent. We know we have an offensive line that can protect.
Preach.
We know we have Smitty, who's maybe one of the most talented number 2s in football.
Talk about it.
Why isn't it ever talked about from that angle, Steve, of I'm frustrated because if you guys get me the ball, we're better.
You are preaching from the wide receiver Bible. Talk about it, Reverend James. Talk about it, Reverend James.
This is maybe your favorite conversation we've had because you didn't have to say it and I did.
Reverend Palmer, preach it, baby. Preach it. Hey, how much you want in the plate?
In the basket?
How much these is 50s too. These is 50s. Woo! How much you want the Andrew Jacksons? How much you want, baby? How much you need for your congregation? Talk about it. The wide receiver.
Whatever the answer always is, Steve, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Oh, well, here you go. Let me put a whole bunch of it in that wide receiver plate right there.
Doesn't that make sense?
Amen. Hallelujah.
Because they're going to have to rely on the pass game.
At some point.
You can't do, exactly.
And if you don't have, and if you don't have any data information, you can't say, hey man, can we run a sluggo? Well, mother sucker, we ain't ran a slat yet. And so you gotta do that stuff. Here's where the frustration goes. The frustration goes is all that stuff we're doing during the week. On Wednesday, on Thursday, on fast food Friday. And then we gonna go ahead and waste my time, make me come in on Saturday morning and do a walkthrough. And then we go on Sunday, and you ain't called near one of those plays. And then if you have, you ain't hit me. So you know what I'm doing? I'm just killing grass. I'm keeping the maintenance man and the field crew employed, but you're screwing up my stuff.
First target for A.J. Brown wasn't towards the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. That just don't work. Right? That's like going to the casino with an EBT card. You can't do that. That ain't what it's for. It's for food. Okay?
Man. Yeah. Well, I think this is a situation after the Brandon Graham comments, if you've heard him.
Yeah, what did Brandon Graham say originally that he walked back?
The person that's complaining need to be accountable. And I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he know this. I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying. And I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he responds to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed. And I understand that because life happens.
He said it and walked it back faster than I took my money out of the collection plate.
Yeah. You took some back already? Appreciate it.
All right, I took. Hey, it's Christmas. I thought about it. I was like, hey, I got to get some more Christmas gifts. I got a big family, man, 4 kids.
He's saying that there is an issue between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and in his mind, Jalen Hurts is trying to kind of mend this, and A.J. Brown needs to be, quote, a little better at how he responds to things. And then this is the part, Steve, that gets things a little bit wonky, I think. Quote, and they was friends before this, but it's like, man, things have changed, and I understand that because life happens. Does that mean they're not friends anymore?
That means they ain't talking no more. Somebody said the text that he's been on unread. They're like, hey, you didn't get it? Oh, bro, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you. I switched to an Android. So you...
When he finishes his quote, he says, quote, we know it's an issue. So everybody's well aware, and now everybody outside the locker room is well aware this is an issue. This is an opportunity for Nick Sirianni to clean this up. Let's see how much they throw the ball against Pittsburgh, because you might have to get AJ some touches.
Yeah, pay me a pigskin.
It's a distraction in the middle of a 9-0 run, Steve, and that's something you want to try to avoid. And now the head coach is going to have an opportunity to clean it up.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I hate to admit it. I was working a couple of years ago. I had to go from like Philly to Pittsburgh. I'm a West Coast guy, and I'm not afraid to admit that I kind of could be an airhead at times. I did not know at the time.
How far it is?
No, bro, they're in the same state. Because when you go to Philly and Pittsburgh, bro, it's apples and oranges.
Very much so. Grew up in Philly. Like, I know.
Bro, I was like, man, I got to go to Philly to Pittsburgh. My wife's like, why don't you just have the car service take you there? It's a long drive. You know, I was like, those 2 different states. My wife looked at me and walked out the room.
What state did you think Pittsburgh was in?
It wasn't Pennsylvania.